Hello and welcome to another episode of The Mark Moss Show, where we talk about the decentralized revolution, talking about the way the world is changing right before our very eyes, and we look at it through the lens of politics, finance, and technology, of course. And I like to bring to you some education to help you think and see things differently, some of the latest breaking news headlines, and try to bring to you some interesting people so you don't have to listen to me talk all the time, and that's what I have in store today. I have a guest on with me today. Her name is Emily Wilson. You might know her as Emily Saves USA. Wow, that's a big handle, and I think she's doing her best to save the USA. So let's talk about that. Emily, thanks for joining me today.
All right, thanks for having me.
I was kind of telling you before we started recording, I've been watching your account for a while. It was kind of brought to my attention, and I just love the way that you're just kind of, I would say you're railing against or for common sense, which just doesn't seem to be so common anymore. And it seems like as the world has been changing rapidly, they're basically just kind of sucking the truth right out, right? And telling us there is no such thing as truth, and 2 + 2 is 5, and all these things. And you're kind of standing up in the face of that and just calling out BS on all of that. Why?
Yeah.
Why are you doing that?
So I am growing, so I continue to shift a lot of my beliefs. I went from super far left to super far right to now I'm just like, all I care about is the truth. And I feel like for me right now, basically, I'm just trying to be the voice of reason on behalf of everyone who doesn't want to be like canceled and lose their jobs and careers and families and friends like I have for saying these things. But bottom line is, it's what everyone's thinking and what people believe, but for some reason saying it out loud, now you're like completely demonized. So I'm trying to switch into more of just speaking about the truth and also trying to bridge the gap between men and women, which weirdly now it's like the most toxic I've ever seen. But everything I'm saying is usually very factual, based in logic, reasoning, common sense, and the way we've behaved as a society for hundreds and thousands of years. Which is the joke. It's like, am I really, crazy, or am I just a normal person from 100 years ago?
You're a normal person from like 10 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not 100 years ago. So that's interesting. So you went from the far left to the far right. So you got red pilled or radicalized somewhere in that. What was that caused you to go from one to the other? Is it because everything shifted so far you just ended up on that side, or were you exposed to something, there was this like awakening moment that caught your eye?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is like, over a period of like being extremely red pilled over like 2 years. But basically what happened really was losing my job because of COVID. I was pretty far left most of my life. I mean, I literally used to be one of those people that was like, Trump is a racist and hates women, even though I can truly say as a liberal, the one thing is I was extremely uneducated. I never went to school, and I just didn't know what I was saying. I was just talking points that I was watching the TV. And then I lost my job due to COVID, and so did, most of my family, basically my entire family. And then having like no job and nothing but time, I just decided for the first time in my life to educate myself. And I started listening to people speak, which like back in the day was like Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh. Still love Matt Walsh. And I just was like, I really like what these people have to say. And bottom line, they're the only ones speaking out against the lockdowns, which has definitely taken my life away. And living in Los Angeles, especially, I live in downtown, like, during the riots and everything, I was in the heat of everything. And I was like, what, this is crazy. So it pushed me far right. Then you go, both sides are nuts. And you go, so let's just go back to middle, which is where I am now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. That's kind of the way that I see this. I talk about this decentralized revolution, and the way, like, I talk about this pendulum that swings, where basically the world swings towards more centralization, which is, obviously the WEF and the UN and the IMF and all of that. But then it gets too crazy, and then it starts pushing people back the opposite way, and that's kind of where we're at, and that's kind of what your story is. And they're almost doing their own marketing for them. Like, the more they get crazy, the more they push, the more people are pushing back. You said something that you want to talk about the truth. Now, the World Economic Forum just had a big meeting in Davos a week ago or 2 weeks ago now, and like the main topic was disinformation. How do we save people from disinformation? So how do you know that you're speaking the truth and not just disinformation?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, my truth usually just comes from a very common understanding. I'm also, I think, level-headed enough to believe that We really only, okay, I speak on my life experiences and what I see and the education I have. When I speak about things, it's
Yeah.
usually an experience that happened to me, or else I don't really understand why people speak unless they've kind of gone through things. It just gives you a better understanding. But for me, it's like, well, the truth can, come from education. In general, everything is biased. There really is no such
Yeah.
thing as truth. It's just whatever we can come up with. But basically, at this point, if I see anything on social media or anything on TV or anything that's easily accessible, I assume it's a lie.
Just default to that.
Yeah. And then I do my own
Yeah.
education and my own research, and I come to what I think is the truth. And then I preach that. But I do try as hard as I can, and I spend a pretty insane amount of time every day just researching the things that I'm talking about and finding the best information I can. But at the end of the day, I'm an idiot and I don't really know what I'm talking about either. So,
But that's actually a good angle to come from, right? It's that humility standpoint, right? Which is like, hey, I don't know. Let me go investigate this. Let me learn. Let me keep an open mind, as opposed to having this closed mind where your mind's already made up. So I think that's a good point. What do you think about this whole war on disinformation then, right? Really, it's about censorship.
yeah.
From my standpoint, it's like they know that their ideas can't stand on their own. They can't stand up to open, intellectual, honest debate. And so the only chance they have is to shut the other side down. You came from the left and all of a sudden started hearing viewpoints on the right and go, wait a minute, that sounds more logical. That sounds more common sense than what I've been believing. And so when you listen to the two ideas, the two viewpoints, it really brought around your viewpoint on that. So do you think that's part of the reason why they're trying to use this term disinformation, just to shut that down, knowing that their ideas can't stand up on their own?
Yeah, of course. The one thing you'll see when you see interviews, especially with the left, is they're truly an uneducated group of people. The crazy thing about being a conservative or Republican is you are held to an insane standard. When I go into anything and I have arguments, I mean, I have to be ready with every fact, every source, every link. Whereas if you're on the left, you can just say whatever you want and you don't ever need to back it with any information. The reason they can't have you'll notice you will never see someone on the left agree to go on someone on the right's podcast, because bottom line, they don't know what they're talking about. Their information is false, and we actually have to put in the work. And so the thing is, they're going to shut down everything they can, because when people realize the truth, people have realized enough truth right now. They should be rioting in the streets, because it's awful. We were lied to about a lot of things, and the thing is, the only way you can truly manipulate the population is by shutting down one side. And that's the thing. When I started listening to these people, I was like, no, I kind of like what they have to say, and I want to hear a lot of what they have to say. And all my favorite people are by far the most controversial people on the planet. But as soon as you shut down a conversation, I assume you are uneducated, uninformed, and you know deep down morally that you are wrong, or else you would have no problem. I speak to people across every spectrum. I don't judge based on that.
Yeah, it certainly goes from an intellectual debate to more of a emotionally charged debate. And once they take it to that emotionally charged side, I mean, there's no discussion there. It's like it's all about emotions. It's already, their mind's already made up, and so you can't have that honest, open discussion on that. It's certainly a thing. You talked about if people really knew, they'd be rioting in the streets. We hear about this all the time, like the silent majority, the silent majority, the silent majority. Why are they so silent? You talked about people are afraid to speak their mind, and so you're doing that for them. It's interesting where, just a few generations ago, World War II, we had, teenage boys storming the beaches of Normandy, getting killed left and right, and yet they kept running forward. And today people are afraid to even say something because somebody may think something bad. It's crazy. I think the world is really recognizing that. One thing that I'm seeing is that in a world where people are afraid to speak, I would say their truth, how they truthfully feel, things have gotten very plain, very vanilla, and the few people that are willing to stand up and say that, it's almost like they've just taken a vacuum and just sucked truth out. And for the few people that are willing to stand up, the Jordan Petersons, the Joe Rogans, even like an Andrew Tate, whether you like what they're saying or not, you recognize they're saying what they believe to be true, and people respect that. And it's very polarizing. It pulls a lot of people in, but it also pushes an equal amount of people away. And I think the world, you can just see how much the world needs that today, as people like that are just constantly just rising to the top. So good on you for that. Now, Emily, what caught my attention was something that you had said. You're living in LA, which I live in Orange County, the next county down, and it is like a completely different world. I try not to get to LA as very often. I try to stay away from there. When I was younger, I used to go to LA all the time, and LA was a great time. But after the whole COVID pandemic, it changed. Anyway, so you're living there. It's kind of a crazy town. It's like a different world away from where I live, and it's probably, from people that I know still in LA, it's probably very difficult for somebody like you with your political leanings and to get along there. And you were talking about the problems that you even have, like going to get coffee, and some ideas that you had of maybe ways to affect change. Let's talk about some of that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'm a very rare breed. I live and hang out in the most liberal parts of Los Angeles. I have for a very long time now. I think I've been in downtown like 6 years now. And when I started, I was a conservative commentator on Newsmax for a while, and I was like, I've been wearing like Republican conservative MAGA gear for literally 2+ years now. Like, I was literally known for hiking with like MAGA hats on every day. And, it's kind of crazy because I've been talking about what I want to do for years, and I'm just like, the way you're treated. I mean, I was banned from like 90% of stores in Silver Lake for not wearing a mask, not complying. And, as soon as you're wearing something MAGA, they literally will deny you service, which is so funny because, they're the party of loving and tolerance. And finally,
Right.
I was like, I've been talking for years about this because I spent a lot of time in Beverly Hills. And I was like, you know what? I have a lot of respect for Kitson. Kitson has been incredible with like supporting police, exposing crime and corruption and all these things. And I think people support him because of that. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, you know what? I want the first proud conservative Republican, open-minded libertarian, whatever it is, coffee shop in Los Angeles. So that is what I basically want to start working on, a place you can go. You're not wearing a mask. You don't need to, have 9 boosters to get in. You can simply come in and you can say whatever you want. I would like to, raise funds for, protecting children's schools, helping elderly, supporting our police. And so that is going to be something that eventually I'm going to start working on.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And like I said, that's what caught my eye, because it's something that I've been pounding the table on as well, which is that unfortunately our vote at the polls doesn't mean that much anymore. And we won't get into all of that, but I think most people realize like we're not going to vote our way out of this.
Yeah.
And I believe that our most important vote is with our money, right? And we should give our money, we should vote with our money. The problem is that we don't have a lot of entrepreneurs that have stepped up to allow us to vote with our money. So we're stuck with just we're stuck with Starbucks or whatever, or we're stuck with Disney, or we're stuck with whatever. But then you're starting to see it, just starting to see it, where you have the Ben Shapiro's now with Daily Wire. They're trying to kind of counter some of that information, right? My best example is what Ben Shapiro did with, he was sponsored by Harry's Razors, and they started Jeremy's Razors, right? And the motto is like, stop giving your money to woke corporations that hate you. And they just made a new razor. And it's like, we just need entrepreneurs that will step up, give people an option to vote with their money. So like a coffee shop, for example. And then what happens is, then if that were to pull enough business away from Starbucks or whatever other coffee shop there may be, the other ones would take notice and they'd go, wait a minute, dang, I think there's a need for this. Like maybe we should start to pivot over as well, right? But I think you and I both know the demand is there. But if we could just get a couple entrepreneurs to step up, fill that need, then I think it could drag the rest of the market over. So I love the idea. Anybody that's interested in investing in a coffee shop in LA, hit up Emily on social media, Emily Saves USA. But I think it's a great idea. And what I'm trying to encourage is entrepreneurs or wannabe entrepreneurs to step up and fill that void across a whole range of products.
Yeah. Well, and a coffee shop is just one thing. My thing is like, so, I mean, I'm really picky and bougie with my coffee and my matcha and all that. I'm very LA, so it's like all the places I go to have treated me so horrible for so long, and I'm like, why do I want to give my money to people that hate me? These people literally,
Yeah.
I'm everything they despise, and I'm spending God knows how much money there, and I'm like, and also I want a place for a community. There's a reason, like, I want to open the coffee shop in Beverly Hills. Obviously, people are a lot wealthier. I think they're generally more conservative, and I think it's more family based. So therefore, they kind of have those values, kind of like Newport Beach in Orange County, which is, I'm from Newport Beach, and I grew up in Seal Beach. So it's like, for me, the most important thing is to start there, but I want it to be a community. I want chairs outside where people can sit, they can be comfortable, they're safe, and they can say whatever they want. Because when I'm in coffee shops, I'm waiting to get kicked out because of the way I speak and my opinions. And it's not comfortable. And yeah, why are we giving companies and people that hate us money? It's makes no sense.
Yeah. We're giving them the money, and then they're using that money that we gave them against us, right? Against what we want. And so we have to stop that. That's one of the things I've been talking about, obviously with the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab. And what he's pounding the table on is called this public-private partnership. And he says that we should get rid of democracy and we should have this public-private partnership where basically the corporations and the governments work together and they control everything. And the part that he's missing is that the corporations don't control us. We control the corporations because we're the shareholders of the corporations, and the person running the corporation has a fiduciary duty to grow that business, and they need customers in order to grow the business. And so we're the customers, we're the shareholders, and so we have the power. The problem is that we don't have the entrepreneurs stepping up to give people those options. But I love that idea, especially to your point about the community side of things, especially living in a place like LA. I mean, the coffee shop is supposed to be that sort of community hub, and you're supposed to have conversation. But in LA, it's really hard. Like, who can you talk to? To your point, you can't. And boy, that could have a good draw. I like that idea. I believe that the truth is found through open and honest discussion. If someone's an idiot or someone's super hateful, they should say that stuff and they should be exposed, and we should know that, right? And so I think that's a good way. Emily, you're a little bit younger, but I'm sure you've seen how fast things are shifting. For me, I'm old enough to have remembered a world when we still lived under a Cold War. We still had the Berlin Wall up in Germany. And it was shocking to me a couple years ago. My main YouTube channel, I've had it out for over 4 years. And it was shocking to me when all of a sudden I was making a video and I found myself censoring myself. I was like, whoa, wait a minute, what am I doing here? Not because I'm afraid to speak my truth, it's because I don't want to get my channel shut down. It's a little bit different, but it was shocking to me that happened. But I saw a couple reports out this week that I thought were pretty interesting. I kind of want to bring to your attention. One of them is that the U.S. plummets in the annual freedom ranking. And so the U.S., the land of the free, actually ranks 23rd in the world in free countries. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think freedom it's a delusion. It's not necessarily something tangible in my eyes. I think for me, freedom, I would say, comes from maybe like spirituality or the way here's the thing. I feel like I live a mostly free life. I'm myself. I say what I want. I don't let people censor me. I live a truly free life. In general, if you want to go into it deeper and you want to talk statistics, yes, we are not a free country. And I would say since Trump has been out of office, we have declined in freedom the fastest. I've never seen a country fall this fast. It's really heartbreaking to see. The current administration, who I believe are just made up of pure socialists at this point, are definitely taking away our freedom. So it does not surprise me we're even that high up at this point.
When you say it's an illusion, it's not tangible, I guess maybe I would ask you what your definition of freedom is, right? I mean, I would say for me, the definition of freedom is freedom of constraints. So either people or circumstances that hold me back from being able to choose or direct my life as I see fit. So I guess freedom of constraints. I don't know what you don't think that's tangible, or do you have a different viewpoint of what freedom
Not
is?
necessarily. I guess it just depends. Like if we're talking like things we can see, or if it's a feeling. I don't know. For me, it's like I feel like I live a mostly completely free life. I'm
Yeah.
mostly, but at the same time, it's obviously not completely free because if we had true 100% freedom, I could go online and say whatever I want to say and not be taken off every single account. So it's like for me, it's like, yeah, I have like what, 60% freedom compared to a lot of places where
Right.
people have basically none. So
And a
I,
lot of it is
it's different to
a
each
lot of it too.
person.
A lot of it certainly is, and that's what a lot of people ask me, like, Mark, why are you still living in California, right? We set up a ranch in Texas, so we have cows and goats in Texas now. We have a house in Mexico, and like, we're getting ready to make some moves here. But like, why would you still live in California? And I'm like, the reality is none of it affects my life, right?
Yeah, that's how I
Newsom's a
feel.
dictator, yeah, right. I mean,
And
he's
I'm
horrible. He's
sorry.
a dictator.
I when people ask why I still live here, genuinely, it is one of the dumbest questions you could ever ask. Oh yeah, I hate living around, oh, I don't know, the best food, the most beautiful beaches, the best people. It's like, dude, there's a reason why we pay so much money to live here. There's a reason why all the
Yeah.
billionaires in the world have a house in Los Angeles. It's not because it sucks, because it's pretty great when you look over the other things, which will change.
Yeah. And so to your point, I mean, it is sort of like a spectrum, and to your point, it kind of affects us all differently. So as restrictive as Gavin Newsom is and all the laws he continues to put in place, and as bad as it looks on paper, like the day to day, like our lives aren't really affected by it, right?
No, like what was the most effective? Like, yeah, I had to like stay home and like certain places made you like it's all gone now. I mean, you can relatively go back to a normal life now. If you're choosing to still do those things, that's on you. But I went out during the whole pandemic. I traveled, I partied, I went out to eat in restaurants. I drove all the way to Orange County to support every single establishment that stayed open. So guess what? I chose as an adult, like we all had a choice to not stop living my life and weigh out the consequences. So for people here that didn't do that, that's not my problem.
Yeah. I think so I think there's like that personal side, like that personal freedom side, but then there's like other areas. So for example, like economic freedom. So try to start that coffee shop and then see how your economic freedom works, right? Like, can you get the permits? Oh, you're a conservative. Oh, you said these things online. Maybe we don't give you your permit to open up here, right? Oh, maybe we don't give you your merchant account so you can accept credit cards anymore, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you pay a high rate. So then you start to really see where that kind of economic freedom comes in. Dan Bongino, he set up a new company for credit card processors just because so many conservative people aren't even able to accept credit cards anymore.
Yeah, and the crazy thing too is like I mean I'm not ignorant to all these things. I know I just got accepted into a seat in my local city council and I will work my way up all the way I can, like as far as I can. And I've already been told, just get ready. They will do every single thing in their power. They will take every single thing you say, use everything against you, and they'll never stop, which is great because I never will either. So, let's go.
It's funny. I've never really taken like trying to run for politics seriously, but I've thought about it before. And, in my younger days, I might have done some things that might not be ideal for a politician, right? And I always thought like, man, I probably have too many, skeletons in my closet or whatever. If people dug this up on me, they'd smear me. I would never be able to run for politics. But then you look at the people getting elected today and the stuff they have going for them. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Like I'm a saint compared to these guys.
We've elected like criminals. These are like the
That's what I'm
worst people.
saying.
They have like the worst track records. Every new person on the left and right, might I add, I see
Yeah.
that gets elected. I go, oh good, her and her husband like beat strangers every weekend. I'm glad she has an opinion on what's happening in the country. I'm like, Jesus, I know a tons of normal, great people, but they don't want to go into politics. So they don't want their lives ruined, which I understand. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to win. I'm trying to have a voice and help other people and their lives and their businesses and protect people because I'm not going anywhere. I'm not leaving Los Angeles. I'm not leaving California. And if no one speaks out, then I'm not going to watch my city crumble around me. And bottom line, they can only silence me for so long when I have, following and people that support me. And I'm only running to expose all the corruption that they're doing. It's not for my personal gain. I would never want that job.
So you don't really want it? You're not hoping that you win? You wouldn't take that? I mean, that's not the
No, it's
goal?
probably awful. It's probably the worst job ever.
Well, what happens if you win?
Well, I guess if I win, then I have to take that responsibility, and if I can help people and help the city and make some progress, then I would do that.
You had said earlier that the extreme left and then maybe the extreme right, they're both extreme, and so you're kind of back in the more in the middle. Do you look at maybe both sides of extreme being almost equally as bad? I mean, are both sides wanting to tell us what to do and be dictators and control us just in different ways?
Yeah, this is an interesting subject to me because as you said, me and my father talk about all the time, the world swings on a pendulum, and what we're seeing right now is the left has gone so mad, and I hope it gets worse. I hope it gets a lot worse because then it's going to swing so far the other way. By nature, it's going to overcorrect itself, which is what nature does. And so right now, the thing is, I've seen the far left and the far right are the same to me. They're both nuts. They don't make any sense, but they need each other to find a balance in the middle. I think that any normal person would agree with that. I don't really see myself in either of them, but the one thing I will say, I'm not a super religious person, but I do love listening to Dennis Prager once in a while. Me and my father have a lot of respect for that man, and I can say with how many things I truly see, I believe when you get older, you have money, you have a business, you have a family, you have things to live, you naturally become conservative. I will say at this point in time, and my opinions change every day, to be on the left is extremely demonic. I can't, it's too much. It's really sick. It's genuinely filled with extremely mentally ill people, and the things they stand for and the things I've seen voted on, like not giving healthcare to a baby that was like a mishap on an abortion, things like that. And very godless. It's, to me,
Yeah.
super demonic. Can't get behind it.
Emily, back to kind of what we were just talking about. One thing that I wrestle with is that I'm for more freedom and less government. And I don't know what political party that I fit into. And I don't really like all these labels, right? So it's like, I mean, I guess I'm kind of Republican, but I don't really like most of the Republicans. And I don't know if I'm really libertarian. Like, can I just be left alone kind of a thing? I kind of like the way the Constitution set up the United States. Maybe we can go back to that. But I was looking at something like Ron DeSantis. Now, I like Ron DeSantis, and sometimes I see him do stuff that goes, man, I should almost move to Florida so I could support Ron DeSantis, right? But then he was doing some like press thing out this last week, and he was saying how he's going to crack down on the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, and he wants to make it so they can no longer buy land in Florida and things like that. And I'm like, okay, like that's pretty good. Like we probably shouldn't have the CCP be buying farmland and strategic land around military bases. That sounds like pretty good, right? Except for, wait a minute, like I believe that private property rights are the most important thing. And so like he's now telling me that I can't sell my own private property? I don't like that. Right. And so then I start looking at these things and I'm like, so just because I happen to like that he wants to crack down on CCP, I like it, but he's actually taking away my freedom and my private property rights. And so that's kind of what I'm talking about. Like, even if I happen to maybe like it, it's still an authoritarian trying to create laws to take away my freedom, right? Either way. And just because I happen to like it now doesn't mean somebody else I don't like won't take advantage of that law later, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of, like I said, at this point, with every politician, everyone in charge, you are literally just choosing between the lesser evil. Because these people can only do so much. They have so many people around them that control them, telling them what to do. So that's what it is. You're just picking between what lesser evil you want to choose. First of all, I am all for banning China out of everything possible, and especially not buying land. I'm super for that. But then again, yeah, how is that going to affect certain people and our rights? Because like you said, I'm just very like, stay out of my life, stay out of my business, and let's respect, the way the country was founded, because I think it worked pretty good for a very long time and still continues to work. But like I said, all these things are going to have positives and they're going to have negatives. You just have to choose. My thing is like, what's best for the country to protect us?
Yeah. Yeah, I saw this other headline that came out this week, and it said more people now cite that the government is the top U.S. problem ahead of inflation. And so this poll went out, and it moved the government being the problem from 15% of the population to 21%. The top ranking problem, which is interesting because it seems like a lot of times when you're talking to And again, I hate the labels, but for what it is, and this is a Gallup poll, by the way. This is a big respected poll. But I hate to use the labels, but when you're looking at, you talk to the left or the right or whatever you want to call it, the two different sides, and it's like, it's almost like we could both agree that there's a problem, and even we could probably agree on the problem, but it's the solution to the problem that we disagree on, right? Where it's like, I think to this poll that it's government involvement that's causing the problem, whereas this other side seems to think that more government is the answer. Like, we know this government's bad, but if we could just get more government, it would fix it. Or if we just get a better government, that would be the answer. Is that insane?
Yeah, well, it is insane. The only people that are ever agreeing with more government are the left, because, like I said, these people are like socialists. They want to literally turn their brain off. They want everything to be free, everything to be taken care of. And first of all, they've never been to a socialist country. It doesn't work. It's awful. That's why they're all dying, quite literally, to get into our country.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, I think what we're seeing right now is for the first time in America, people picked up a book on history. I don't know if they're reading Orwell or what's going on, but I think that's what they're seeing. Oh, shocker. The government's never been on our side, and they never will.
Yeah. I saw this week the House passed a resolution on Wednesday denouncing the horrors of socialism in a 328 to 86 vote. I don't really know what that means. I think it's a little bit of virtue signaling kind of a thing, but at
Yeah, I
least
don't know
they're
what
kind
that
of like,
means.
they're standing up. They passed a resolution which basically says it was a measure led by Rep. Maria Elvira Salazar, House Majority Leader Steve Scalia from Louisiana. And basically it just said, it denounced this. So it was a resolution specifically denouncing past and present leaders ranging from Vladimir Lenin, Joseph Stalin, and Nicolas Maduro from Venezuela. And it basically just kind of outlined how all the people died in the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, what happened through the USSR, through China, et cetera. And so kind of put a stamp on that. And so it's kind of, to me, is like, it's the pendulum swinging back, as we kind of talked about, or like the turning of the corner, where like we've been on this massive path towards socialism or communism or whatever you want to call it, basically the same thing. And now we're starting to see all that pushback. And so to see this like House resolution come out specifically and denounce that, one, I think it's a sign of the times that we're starting to pivot back. It's also a little bit rich when we're sort of a socialist nation. You know, I wrote a book. I released it last August. Multiple bestsellers. I'm going to shill it here. It's called The Uncommunist Manifesto. So I took the Communist Manifesto, rewrote it. And in the original Communist Manifesto, Karl Marx laid out 10 points of communism. So in order to have communism, we'd have to have these 10 things. And if you take those 10 things and then say, does the United States have any of these 10 things? As a matter of fact, yeah, we have 7 of them. Mm-hmm. And so then it's like, well, then a lot of people say, well, capitalism is the problem here. It's capitalism that's ruining everything. And it's like, well, are we capitalist or are we communist? Because we have 7 of the 10 points. Like, we're 70% of the way there.
Yeah. Well, also, it all depends on who's benefiting from these things. It's,
Yeah.
There's a certain demographic that goes to each of them. Like, of course, yeah, like, when you're an entrepreneur and you're independent, you're going to love capitalism. When you're like lazy, you don't want to work, you just want to be told what to do and all these things, and you don't want to ever, no offense, amount to anything, then I think you're just going to lean towards socialism. But this country is definitely going in one specific direction. I think it's good to have a balance of everything, though. I don't want people starving. I want people to, be able to afford to have a living and take care of themselves. And things should be fair.
Now, I have 2 minutes left. So one more question I'd like to ask you, because you're young, you're kind of leading this new batch of people your age, this new demographic, and as you kind of just said, it's easy for people who have lived under socialism to now see this and go, no, we don't want this. For myself, as I was a kid growing up, we still had this Cold War, so I was taught that communism was really bad. I was taught that. But they're not being taught that today. So if you've come from that or you were taught that, it's easy to see that. But your age demographic hasn't seen that. And your age demographic has mostly been taught that is the better path forward. It's humane and all these things. So what do you think is the key to like getting to people in your demographic to get them to wake up to this?
I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like, the only reason I woke up was because I chose to educate myself. Granted, I have an older father who's great. who has, been there for me along the way and helped me. And he's 81 years old Friday. So, obviously learning from his experience is completely different. And also fighting to be in this country is going to give you a much different perspective. At this point in time, the only thing I could really like recommend to younger people, ironically, is to not go to school. School at this point is just pure indoctrination. They are not only teaching us to hate ourselves, they're teaching history completely incorrectly. And I'm not really sure what's going on or what the solution is. But the only thing I could say at this point is like literally schools are turning these kids into, they're insane. These kids are nuts. They are the most uneducated group of people. They interview kids who are like getting degrees in history. They can't even name a date. They have no idea what's going on. They're like, everything's racist. They don't understand. They have no grasp on reality. It's terrifying to watch as someone who did not have a chance.
I think college is teaching you to memorize and recite things as opposed to thinking for yourself. So follow what she's saying and go think for yourself. Go do your own research, as we like to say. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to the Mark Moss Show. You've been listening to me talk with Emily Wilson of Emily Saves USA. Follow her on Twitter and Instagram if you want to get woken up. And that's what I got. Thanks for listening.